Thank you for pressing start on episode 74 of Underplayed, KZUM's indie video game podcast. Today, we have 2 secret games followed by a review of our featured game, Her Story. Here on Underplayed, we review indie games of all kinds, the games with small budgets, but big hearts, the lesser-known experiences with imaginative ideas. I'm Bo Po, but it's not only me. There's a guy with a flow who's on a journey. So won't you put your hands together, please, for the Zeo Drifter, the indie game sifter, the curse-cracking mister, DiscoCola. What is going on?
I tell you what, Bopo, I'm tired today. I'd taken a big drive recently and I fell asleep in my car. I swear that's where I was, but I'm back now. By the way, is that microphone recording? How are you?
Did you go to Glasgow? I'm doing just fine. My jump-scaring computer screen reflection, those are references to our featured game, Her Story.
Not what I was expecting.
I had some options of things to say there. I went with something maybe a little bit more unexpected. Those are references to Her Story. We're going to review Her Story later on in the episode. Here at the top, though, we have several things to talk about. Some involving content, some involving news. First, I wanted to share that we can now talk about our vague reference to content that we were talking about last episode.
It sounded so silly to hear it at the Twitch premiere Monday nights before our Tuesday release, but then to hear it on Wednesday after our April Fool's joke that we played.
We did an April Fool's. What did we do for April Fool's, Disco?
We did a little swapsy butler where we switched places with Kate and Emily from No Small Games. So Bo and I hosted No Small Games, and we reviewed the game Haven, re-recorded intros and outros, all that jazz. And then Kate and Emily did the same and hosted Underplayed and re-recorded intros and outros, and even put some killer vocals on Secret Games.
Oh, it was so good.
Oh,
yes. It was amazing.
Oh,
yes.
my gosh.
I want to hear Kate and Jack Rodenberg sing a song together now.
You know, honestly, they'd probably hit it off and
it would
probably at least get like 2 or 3 songs recorded.
Yes, they would be a great pairing when it comes to making music. I would love to hear that someday.
And then when they did Underplayed, they reviewed their featured game, Web Fishing.
Yes.
And they had 2 secret games. And if you want to find out what they were,
they're on our feed.
The title is right there, but you should listen to the episode anyway.
It's 2 episodes ago in our feed.
Yes.
So yeah, we had a packed week of content the other week.
It was one of the busiest weeks we've had in a while. I think all 4 of us, but I could tell that it was like good energy. Once it was like done, we were like so excited.
It was very good energy. Yeah. You have to do a little bit of homework, a little bit of research, a little bit of prep that you're not used to.
You're editing something totally different.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also like big props to Kate for editing the episode that they recorded for our feed, and big props to you for editing the episode that we recorded for their feed.
Yeah.
Did I get that right? Did
yes.
I get all the words correct?
Yeah, I think
in the right place?
All of the subjects were correct, I believe. Yes.
But you both did an awesome job, like getting it all packaged up.
And it was worth it. And the episodes were awesome. So
yeah, it was so great.
Really
we got great feedback too. Really fun times, and thank you to our friends for collaborating with us again.
We'll look forward to whatever the next one is. I don't know if this will be an annual thing, because like
it's hard to do a Fool's doing the same thing 2 years ago, but that's exactly what people would expect you to not do. But now that I've said that,
who knows?
But with reverse psychology, you'll now think that we won't do it anyway.
We'll collaborate again. But I'm sure it'll look different because our last collaboration was Christmas. So I think we're just we're holiday friends now somehow.
Yes, we'll find another holiday. I'll think about that a little bit more. But yeah, real quick on Haven, we both enjoyed it, and I had an awesome time discussing that with you.
Mm-hmm.
We played that both kind of like privately, like we both obviously knew the other was playing it, but we didn't really talk about it on this show or anything. And that was a really cool assignment to have.
Yeah, and you managed, it was like having a secret game from your audience, because you didn't even tell like your Twitch people that you were playing it.
No, I almost played it on Twitch and I decided not to.
Yeah.
Actually.
Wow.
So I had to carve out some time And I did that in very large chunks the days before we recorded that episode. So it was fun. And I kept imagining what you were thinking about the game, and I guess I do that for our show, but it felt different.
It was a little bit different, yeah.
Another thing that sometimes comes up is we record a podcast about something, and then after we talk about a game, new content or a new edition or something will come out. And this just happened. Like the epitome of this happened today, actually. So a couple weeks ago, we released our Another Crab's Treasure episode. You actually talked about wanting physical versions.
Yeah, I did.
And we hadn't had the physical versions announced yet. And today we got 2 announcements from Aggro Crab. One of them is for the Year of the Crab update, which amazing name.
Yeah.
10 out of 10 name
Awesome.
for an update. And then also physical editions. We're getting physical editions for Another Crab's Treasure.
Yes. Stoked.
What was your reaction to hearing these 2 pieces of news?
Well, I actually had heard about Year of the Crab like randomly early somehow. So that one I already celebrated. But when I came in here today, I opened up our group chat and there it was, physical editions. And you heard me say, woo, yes, just right here while we were.
Yeah, I got to see you open that message right here.
And you're like, whoa, what? Oh,
yeah.
I know what you're doing.
So Year of the Crab is going to be an update that comes April 21st for Steam, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Game Pass. It's also coming to Switch soon, and it involves new Game Plus, a new bestiary, new boss rush, and more. I think you saw a new costume.
Costumes, yeah. That's
costumes.
When I found out about it, the social media person posted a story about the new Pretty Princess costume.
Amazing.
So
I love it. I love finding costumes in that game.
And I'm actually really excited about this bestiary. I wasn't expecting something like that.
Yeah, I'm actually excited about New Game Plus.
Oh, and the boss rush.
Yes.
I don't remember if I actually said this in the episode, but I remember that I wanted to say that this game could use a boss rush.
You did say that to me, whether it was in the recording or outside the recording. You did say that in this room, I think.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So you know that I said that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
At least you knew.
And I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree that would be really cool. So very exciting stuff. And then the physical editions, let me just check on this. I think it's PS5 and Switch.
Yep, and they're coming from I Am 8-Bit.
I Am 8-Bit is doing those. And it's PS5 and Nintendo Switch.
Yep.
So very exciting.
Yeah, this has happened on like 3 big occasions. The last one I remember was like Cult of the Lamb. We did the Cult of the Lamb episode and they were like, we're doing an update.
Yep.
It kind of,
and then they did another update.
Yeah. Did we know about the update of Sea of Stars, or was that like a day before or something?
That was around the same time too. They announced the one that still hasn't come out yet. And then they also announced Throes of the Watchmaker and the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was all happening around that time too. So
there's another one, but Cult of the Lamb was the one I remember. I was just like, you would.
You would. And how fitting that Cult of the Lamb and Another Crab's Treasure, which have similar energies online, have done this now. Yeah. Very cool stuff. Then also, we want to just quickly touch on the fact that next episode, we have a guest. We're going to have Jeremy Reineck of Moonsoul Games. He's the creator of Grand Soul Story, a 2024 RPG, and he is going to help us review Animal Well. So we have another game developer guest, just like we've had a few times this season, and we will talk to him about his game development, how he got to where he is now, and he will also help us review this highly lauded game from 2024. I'm very excited.
I know you are.
Yes.
I'm very excited.
I'm very excited to talk about. It is my favorite game of 2024. So
yes.
There will be no surprises.
Slight spoilers.
Slight spoilers. No surprises about how I feel about that game. But always great to talk about good games with a great guest. Then next, we want to talk about some sadder news. And you actually pointed me to this. We talked about Cult of the Lamb a second ago. We learned of the passing of Narayana Johnson, a.k.a. Riverboy, and they were the composer and audio director for Cult of the Lamb.
Yeah, I'm super bummed about this. There's a lot of really great indie music out there, indie game music. And if you recall, we mentioned a collaboration I did with Cater Blossom where we, picked a bunch of really great albums. Cult of the Lamb was originally on that list, but we decided to let's pick some smaller games just to give them a highlight. But it was on that list for a reason, because Riverboy's music is really something special. One of his musical signatures that stands out for me above pretty much any other composer is his percussion style, especially in the Darkwood and Anora and Anchor Deep songs. Just the way he handles percussion is some of my favorite. And I have other indie bands that do that, but I haven't really heard that musical signature in games, and so I'm really gonna miss that. And it's a big loss. His musical talent is really incredible. Even the songs on here that don't have that, stick tapping thing that I love, all the songs in Cult of the Lamb are just really good. So it's a really, really big loss for the indie game music space.
Yeah, iconic singular sound, in my opinion, and a sound created by this very talented person that helped shape the personality of the game. I think without these compositions and without this audio design, I think the game just doesn't feel quite the same. And just a great balance of hip hop beats and lighter instruments, and taking music that evokes the feeling of worship and mix and matching that with sounds that feel like they're from the occult. You kind of need those two sides of the spectrum in a game about choosing whether you do more blessed holy powers or more cursed dark powers.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
And even the songs, now that you're talking about emotions evoked, the songs where you're out adventuring, those create that feeling like you're being watched, because you're being watched by these followers of the old faith too. So it's really effectively done.
It is. And there's this uncanny cuteness in the game. There's this nice, soft, gentle edge, but then there's something morbid and dark and violent too. And I just think that the music strikes that balance so well all throughout. So Riverboy is gone too soon, but his music will live on in our hearts, and I will never forget it.
Yeah, same here.
Before we move on, if you're listening to Underplayed right now, thank you, and we love you. If you haven't already, please consider giving us a follow and a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It should only take a few seconds, and we'd really appreciate it. And if you have a friend who likes indie games, please share our podcast with them too. We would love that. It is time for our secret games.
The secret games. Secret games that you're playing. The secret games. The secret games.
In Secret Games, we each review an indie game we've been playing in secrets since our last episode. We don't discuss our picks in advance. We keep them a surprise for this very moment we're sitting down to record. So we can choose any indie game we want, as long as we haven't reviewed it before. And we will start with you, DiscoCola. Let the mystery be no more. Reveal your secret game for episode 74 of Underplayed.
My secret game comes from a confirmed future Underplayed guest named Jeremy Reineck. My secret game is Grand Soul Story.
Ah, there it is.
There it is.
So I am obviously aware of this, and I also remember that Jeremy sent us a key to this game, and you snagged it. But
Yes.
I wasn't sure when exactly you were going to pick it for our show.
Yeah, I actually tried to pick it last season, but didn't work out on the timeline. It's a JRPG style game, so as often comes with the territory, it's a little bit longer, and I just ran out of time to play it last season.
Yeah, and this came out in early 2024. I know it's an RPG. We have done, or at least I know you know more about the game than I do, but I have done a little bit of research on the game. I've, done what I can, but I have not played it myself. So a lot of what you say will be new for me.
Yeah, and I'm going to focus a lot more on the story and gameplay above anything else that we might already have found in our research when we got in touch with Jeremy. But
Cool.
I'm going to read the description from Steam just because there are city-state locations that I get confused. So
Sure.
I'm going to rely on Steam for this one. You are a refugee recently landed in the turbulent city-state of DuPont and seeking passage to the distant port of Yurden, where your family awaits. Get lost in a mature JRPG adventure featuring an immersive world, character-driven narrative, stirring original soundtrack, and tough battle system. When you start the game, you are in the midst of a very violent coup, I think. Basically, everyone inside the building you are living in is being hunted and killed. So you gotta leave, and you gotta leave fast. And you find yourself being harbored in DuPont, thanks to our characters Elsie and Santos. And they're going to help you get started on your journey to Yurden, where some of your family is living. So that's the start of the game. As you might imagine, narrative-driven JRPG, things evolve from there. You meet different people. Gameplay is pretty straightforward. It's a JRPG-style gameplay, so you explore the overworld map, you interact with various NPCs, take main quests and side quests. You'll engage in a JRPG-style battle. It's worth noting, whenever we talk about JRPG-style games, that this game does not have the random encounter battle system.
Okay.
So you'll see each battle coming, and you can engage or attempt to avoid battles as needed. While in battle, you have your standard default attack. You also have special moves that will cost AP and or SP. There is also a mechanic where you can build up these orb things that will increase the effectiveness of a move when you decide to use them. I'm told that this is in a game called Octopath Traveler.
Yeah.
I haven't played that. But
I've played the demo for that, oddly enough, but not enough to remember that as a concept. But yeah, I'm familiar with that.
If I recall, that's where other players have said that appeared. And as with most JRPG style games, you can collect various items and equipment through shops and combat as a standard, and these will increase your stats and your ability to better perform in combat. And you will also gain access to various party members throughout time. I'm going to go through a couple of them real quick, if that's okay with you.
Yeah,
so we'll
please
just get
do.
this out of the way at the top. You've got yourself, of course. You are an unnamed protagonist. You give yourself the name, and you are mostly silent. You'll be given dialogue options from time to time.
Okay. Did you pretend like it was you?
I mean, I named the character Disco,
Okay.
but I usually don't find myself inserted into the silent protagonist character very often.
Forever onward, I'm just going to say Disco is the protagonist of Grand Soul Story.
Okay, that's fine with me. I do know, because of a conversation I had with Jeremy months ago when I tried to play it the first time, that there is a name that you can enter that has an Easter egg or some sort of special encounter. I don't know what that name is.
Oh, he just said that there is an Easter
yes,
egg,
because
but didn't tell you what
I
it is.
encountered a bug related to naming myself, and he was like, "Hey, sorry, this is a result of this."
Whoa.
So there is a special name in there that you can pick.
Do you think anyone knows other than Jeremy?
I don't know. Probably. From what I understand, from what I've heard other players say that have talked to him, he's pretty open with telling you things about the game that might seem like secrets.
Okay.
You've also got Elsie, who I've already mentioned. She's a smuggler, and she has a stim addiction. Addiction is a strong element in this game. There's stim and then there's ink. And I think stim is like a stimulant kind of addiction. So probably analogous to cocaine, maybe. Okay. And ink is probably more like a pain sedative kind of a drug. That's my understanding, just based on naming and context. Anyways, you've also got Hashem Hakim. who is a mercenary. You meet Jacques Dumond. He is a Sokari mystic, and he sort of specializes in explosives. Like when we meet him, he's in his like temple, and he almost accidentally, or maybe on purpose, I can't exactly recall, but he almost blows the temple up. You meet Sullivan, who is sort of like a revolutionary, and has a past with Elsie, which is
Ooh.
one of the more interesting story points. I've already mentioned Santos. He's kind of just like a grumpy old dude smuggler as well, so he works with Elsie a lot. And then we've got a couple other smaller characters that show up a bit later.
And these are all in different locations, or are some of them in the same?
Some of them are in the same location, but no people join your party all at the same time, really, as I recall.
Okay.
Maybe Santos and Elsie join your party at the same time for a moment, but people will come to your party, leave your party, and then most of them also have a point where they leave your party for good if you fulfill certain conditions.
Gotcha.
So.
I have so few touch points when it comes to JRPGs, but I've been playing Chrono Trigger this year, so it's, parts of this are reminding me of Chrono Trigger. It's reminding me of Sea of Stars in ways too, and I'm sure those are inspirations.
I don't see them as direct inspirations personally. Well, I can't say for Chrono Trigger because I haven't played it, but as I understand, Chrono Trigger and Sea of Stars are pretty similar, so I don't see a ton of direct straight line.
And that whole topic of like what makes a JRPG, that'll be an interesting topic to explore with Jeremy as well when we talk to him next episode.
But yeah, it's a JRPG. Like if you've played one, you kind of, for the most part, maybe know what you're getting into. Maybe you're more of the like creature collector one like I am, whereas like Digimon and Pokemon, where you it's more about the collecting of the monsters. But in general, most of the gameplay is what you would expect. So for things that I like about Grand Soul Story, for me this time, my favorite thing is the music. Jeremy, the creator of Grand Soul Story, actually has a really strong background as a musician.
Hell yeah.
And his chops really shine through in this game. Every song I heard was really solid. Even when I had trouble finding the time to start this game, I was kind of checking out the music and finding some really great stuff. So that was helping to maybe get the ball rolling a little bit. So I really appreciate the music. I think it's all very good. And I don't know if this is the style he usually plays with. It's my understanding that he's more of like a jazz musician, but I don't know that for sure. But regardless, I think he did a great job. He nailed it. Generally, I like the setting of the world. You go to a lot of different kinds of places. You see a lot of different kinds of things. But I think most specifically, all the things I saw kind of make sense in proximity to each other. Like it makes sense that there's this giant mine surrounded by various kinds of like villages, neighborhoods that each have different economic vibes. So you have like a slum kind of area. You have just like a city apartment area very near the mine because obviously those people probably work in the mine. That's probably a big source of the income for that region.
And this isn't like Sea of Stars or Chrono Trigger where a lot of it is super time bendy and science fiction-y, where we just have this excuse to go to all these different places. So that can make it a little more challenging maybe to figure out logistically where should these places go. And it makes sense.
Yes, but in that sense, it is more grounded too. And all of those places are near a dock so that you can transport your trade from the mine, out to sea and all that. So all of that makes sense, and I really appreciate the thought that went into that. I do like the boldness of the game. I've played some gritty games at this point, including games that have stories to tell with addiction, but most of the time it's more in the realm of like a singular person struggle, and it's usually with alcohol. This is more focused on the video game representation of the real world opioid epidemic that we're facing. And even then, even though I have played these grittier games at this point, I haven't really seen these topics explored as much in the JRPG style of game. Usually it's some sort of fantasy element or some existential threat to the fate of the world. That still exists in this game, but
There are real world problems going
yes,
on. Yeah.
exactly.
Does this require a content warning for some people, would you imagine?
I mean, potentially, sure. Yeah, I mean, there's topics of drugs and addiction. There are police states and, extrajudicial murders
Okay.
in the game.
Yeah.
So I would say if those things bother you, that would be the content warning I would provide.
It sounds like not necessarily the same topics explored in Dujana, but maybe the depth of content that might be upsetting for some people as something like Dujana, where Dujana explored a lot of different mature themes, but nothing that was overly upsetting.
Right.
It was a game that upset us at the end because of like the broad story, but then it touched on lots of smaller topics too.
Yeah. And the way that it was depicted is like, I think the drug addiction part of Dujana was like, these people turned into spiders because they did drugs or something.
Right.
I don't remember if that was exactly
Yeah,
right.
there's something lost there,
Yeah.
something that gets a little fantastical.
And like even in this game, because it's like a RPG Maker 16-bit style graphics, and most of the character sprites are really small, anything that would otherwise be gory, or there's even nudity in this game, but you can't
Very pixelated.
You can't tell. You can't see anything except just like a human-shaped wash of peach-colored skin, essentially. So I don't know. I wouldn't content warn on that kind of stuff, but it's there.
Fair. Yeah.
And then there are like these side quests. They're usually like fetch quests, but the resolution for some of these were at times like more interesting than the main story. Like I reunited someone with their lost dog. I had to get involved with an unrequited love, and that resolution was really fascinating. So some of these side quests are super rewarding. So I recommend seeking those out and finishing as many of those as you can. And then this seems like something that would be a dislike for most. But you're often faced with choices that have little or maybe no impact on the story, like moral choices. So you might find an unhoused family that's asking for money, and you could give it to them, but one of the other family members might mention that, hey, my mother, who is the one asking for money, is suffering from an addiction. And this can happen at times when like money is really scant, and like basically the whole point of the game is to get money. Like you are getting money so that you can move to Yurden.
Right.
Like that's essentially your goal.
It's that idea right there. Just that part is giving Papers, Please.
Yeah,
too,
it is. It is a little bit like that. And you don't know what to do. A lot of the times when you're faced with these decisions, like making what is obviously the morally correct decision ultimately rewards you in the end. But to my knowledge, there's no like strong reward.
So that choice is just for you.
Yeah.
And you've talked about similar choices in other games where maybe there isn't an actual reward or benefit for upgrading your character or getting compensated in an alternate way. You're just doing it because the game is offering it to you. And I think you've mentioned that you like that in other games.
Yeah, it's like it challenges me. It's forcing self-discovery upon myself. And I really like being challenged with some of those decisions just so that I can learn a little bit more about myself, because I don't always know. And when the stakes are low in a video game because it's not real life, it's easy to make a choice. But when the benefits or costs of a choice are nebulous, it really is just like up to your soul, your vibe at that point.
And I think I would be caught off guard with some of these moments. I wouldn't expect them to come, and then here we go. I'm supposed to get to this place, and now this might mean I can't quite get to where I need to go, but I feel this pressure to do what I feel is right.
Yeah, and that can be hard, and sometimes it's hard to make the quote-unquote right choice because sometimes you've found like a stash of money somewhere, and there's no face in front of you to say no to. And so you're faced with that decision in different circumstances. And so there is still like a quote unquote, like morally correct thing to do.
Sure.
but you never know.
Wow. That's fascinating.
Yeah. As for things I don't like, I've made it known in multiple past episodes, but in general, I don't like the look of things made in RPG Maker. I do think that Grand Soul Story put in a little extra effort compared to some others I'm familiar with. I can still tell this is an RPG Maker game. And then you add to this that certain elements of visuals are also made using AI. It just isn't my favorite game to look at.
Mhm.
Other visual things too, like the battle sprites, seem odd to me. There's this term I learned back when I used to do a sprite comic, and it was either sprite mixing or bit mixing. Either way, when you use sprites of one style and put them next to sprites of another style, it's really off-putting. And the battle system does this, which also happens to be some of the elements derived from AI. So while I appreciate that I can tell what my enemies are because their sprites are more upscale, I think I'd prefer to lose that fidelity for the sake of a matching style.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's two styles that could work perfectly fine on their own, like separately, but we're just seeing them side by side, and that causes something that's sometimes a little jarring.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't look good together. I think there needs to be more party members capable of healing. Generally, it's
Oh.
just Elsie
Okay.
or items.
So were you going down a lot in this game?
Well, this game is rough. Like, just the battles themselves are rough. And you really this is even after like rebalancing the game too. Jeremy went back and rebalanced the game.
Okay.
The game's still pretty rough.
So it's supposed to be hard.
It's supposed to be hard.
Okay.
And Elsie's pretty much the only one that does any healing naturally. Otherwise, it's pretty much items, and it costs a turn to use items. Additionally, kind of on that topic, I don't really understand AP and SP and what the difference between them actually is. Most of your special attacks require a cost from both. So because both are required in most cases, I don't really understand like what they are and why what I do will recover maybe AP or SP sometimes, but not the other. Because I just don't fully understand the concept of what they actually are.
People who have played other JRPGs might have encountered similar systems. I haven't played enough to feel familiar with that kind of thing, but it could be out there somewhere in other games too.
Potentially. There is one thing that I do want to commend that I haven't seen in a lot of JRPGs. In this game, you can spend your turn basically in defense mode, and it will recover, I want to say AP. I don't know if it's AP or SP, but it will recover that.
Okay.
Whereas otherwise, if you just did like a plain attack, it would stay the same.
Yeah.
Or just, stay empty. And that the only other game that I have played that has done that is Digimon World 2. If you spend your turn defending, it will heal your magic points to some degree so that you can then use special moves again. And I actually really liked that mechanic in Digimon World 2 because it didn't force me to require items. I could recover my MP and then still attack eventually.
Yeah, it means you don't get stuck like totally messed up because you're not near a merchant or not near something that you can farm to get the thing that you need to keep attacking. Yeah.
So I do appreciate that was in this game, and I wouldn't mind seeing that in more RPGs. Not that I plan on playing a ton of them.
Right. They take up your time.
Yeah.
You've got to play other games.
Another thing is that I usually know my ultimate goal, and that ultimate goal involves getting a lot of money, I still find myself pretty directionless. Like I don't know exactly where to go and how to get as much money as I need. And this is in part because of my next complaint, and I already mentioned it. Even after balancing, this game is still really hard for me. When it comes to RPGs, I like spending an extra hour or two just maybe grinding for a little while, in part because I want to explore every corner of maps to make sure I found everything, but also to overlevel a little bit. I don't like trying to think 10 turns ahead in RPGs just to barely make it out alive or use pretty much all of my items that I started with. That kind of game isn't fun for me. And not only do I find that most enemies are in that difficulty range, but there aren't really opportunities to grind much either, at least not early on in the game. So because I don't really want a challenging experience, it is once again clear to me that JRPG style games are going to be rarely for me unless they have Digimon, especially when most JRPGs include. My next complaint is that the game is just too big. It is shorter than most JRPGs, but we know, you and I and all our friends, we pretty much all enjoy the shorter game, basically.
Yep. There are people who it seems like JRPGs are their thing, though.
There are tons of people, like most of the people that I play Digimon cards with are JRPG people. Like,
Okay. Nice.
They love all the big Persona games and,
Yeah.
and all those games like
I
that.
follow a couple Twitch streamers where it's pretty much all they play.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's just such a different world from what we're used to.
It's a really... I have an open mind for a lot of games, and I wish that I could play more JRPGs, but I just can't. But yeah, in general, I think what remains true is that most JRPG style games, especially the longer ones, are not for me. That being said, this game was done by a solo dev, and that dev took a lot of swings, and I think did a commendable job in most aspects. Similar to a praise I gave to Ghost Song, the supporting cast adds a ton to this game. Someone that wants an affordable and gritty version of a 16-bit style JRPG are much more likely to get something out of this than I did. The music is a solid listen in or out of the game, so I'm going to give Grand Soul Story a 7.0 out of 10.
Nice. That's actually what I guessed. I don't usually try to guess your score, but
I always try to guess yours.
I know. Amazing. And yeah, you took this key for this game a while ago. I don't know if I have any questions other than just like, what was the journey like of playing the game when it comes to your play sessions, and how long did you play the game total?
Yeah, so I played for probably 8 hours late last season.
Okay.
And then maybe 6 more hours early this season, and then just the rest within the last week.
Okay, so
it's very far apart.
Sure. But all together, quite a lot of hours.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I don't have any questions. We're going to talk to Jeremy about Grand Soul Story
so
next
we can
episode.
Bring those up then.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll learn more next episode about just the process of bringing a JRPG to life and about JRPGs in general. Where can you play Grand Soul Story?
Grand Soul Story is available on Steam. I did hear that there was talk of maybe a Switch port coming, but I did not look too deep to confirm that.
Okay. It is time for my secret game. My secret game is called VIDEOVERSE.
I haven't heard of this, but I love the name.
Yeah, I was first drawn to the game, I think because of the name. And I heard good things about it, but I didn't know what it was about. So I'll tell you what it's about. So VIDEOVERSE is a 2023 narrative adventure game. It was developed by Kinmoku, which is the developer name of Lucy Blundell, and it was also published by Kinmoku. The game synopsis from the Steam storefront reads, quote, "Relive the days of the early internet and dive into this fictional video game era where the Kinmoku Shark gaming system and its online social network VIDEOVERSE were still popular," end quote. So you can already tell there that Lucy Blundell is using the developer name of Kinmoku in-game as a video game company, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So you'll hear that a couple times while I talk here. But this game mostly takes place in the year 2003. You play as Emmett, a German 15-year-old boy who interacts with his friends within VIDEOVERSE. And VIDEOVERSE is this social media platform that takes place on a game console called the Kinmoku Shark. So the Kinmoku Shark is a hybrid device. It plays video games, but it's also connecting to VideoVerse, where this rudimentary social media platform takes place. And it has this camera attachment that Emmett and his friends can use to share video of themselves while they type chats to each other. And in VideoVerse, you can browse and post to forums, you can private message people, and you can receive friend requests. Emmett is an aspiring artist and avid gamer, and he bonds with other users over a game called Feudal Fantasy, which has a dedicated community on VideoVerse. And Emmett has several friends, just like what you did with Grand Soul Story. I'll briefly talk about the side characters. We have Marcus, who's Emmett's longest best friend. There's Lorena, who is a more recent friend who shares some interests with Emmett. There's Zaylor, who is a bit more immature. He's kind of a jackass.
Just in this trailer, I'm getting like not quite Kunio vibes. Kuno
from
Disco Elysium.
Oh, yes.
It's not quite there.
Good callback. I love that. Yeah. And like you never hear these people's voices other than Emmett. There's a narrator voice that will sometimes speak in interstitials, but you're really just reading these people's text that they type. There's also Nobu, who's an older user in his mid-30s. There are many more characters you talk to in the forums, but those are some of the ones that you private message quite a lot. But there's one very important other user you get to know, and their name is Vivi. And Emmett becomes very interested in Vivi. Vivi becomes central to the main story of this game. And I will refrain from saying more about them because that's for you to discover, new players. And so I'll keep those details sparse. And then as the end of the year 2003 approaches, Kinmoku announces that VideoVerse will be sunsetted to make way for Ocean Online, which is their new social media platform on their next console, the Dolphin. So the Shark and VideoVerse are going away. They're being outdated by the next console and the next online service. This is something we see all the time in video games.
Yeah.
The next console's coming up, and all these old users of the old platform, they start to have these conversations about, do we get the Dolphin? Do we get the new system? Are you getting the Dolphin for Christmas? And this kicks off a more unstable social media environment in VideoVerse, where there becomes less moderation. There's more bullying and harassment that crops up. And as Emmett, you talk to your friends. You choose whether you report posts that violate the community rules. You learn more about Vivi, and you're supposed to just figure out what you want your future to look like once VideoVerse shuts down. I'll talk a little bit about VideoVerse's construction, like when you're using the Shark in this game. This is basically using a system within a video game for a vast majority. You're looking at this 1-bit style on a digital interface. You have a home page where you can see your friends and you can change your color theme. You have a communities tab where you can go to all the different forums to discuss games, off-topic conversations. You can share and react to art, and you can discuss the game Feudal Fantasy. There's also a chat feature where you send and receive DMs, and that's where a lot of the storytelling takes place. Emmett also has this desk space that changes with each chapter of the game, and there are 8 chapters. Every time you start a chapter, you can look at your desk, and sometimes the items on your desk change. They tell a little bit of story. You have a notebook where Emmett logs tips that he finds on VideoVerse, as well as words of wisdom. You have a calendar that tells you what day of the year it is. You also have a to-do list that keeps track of people on VideoVerse who might need your help. So you can consult that if you want to see what open threads you still have with some of your acquaintances. And so this game is all about logging into this social media platform, chatting with people, liking and sometimes reporting posts, and soaking in a story about coming of age and fandom and technology and online relationships over the course of the 8 chapters. So this is a story-focused game. You can think of it as a visual novel with some freedom in how you respond. So Emmett will get several options of what to say sometimes, and you can choose whether he is more compassionate. Sometimes he can be more cocky, or sometimes he can be a little bit more neutral or rude, I guess. And what I liked about Videoverse is that, honestly, as a narrative first experience, this game kind of blew me away.
Yeah.
I really love the interface in this game. I think it is intuitive and immersive. There are only a handful of areas to explore and think about, and you start to understand a loop in each chapter where you can DM people, you can check unread messages, you can post to forums, but you never know what you'll read or who you'll hear from next. I also, presentation-wise, just love the music by Clark Abood. This is lo-fi 8-bit music that is really relaxing and beautiful throughout. And it's within the world of the game, it's actually the music the characters are listening to while they're using their shark devices when they're in Videoverse. So it is diegetic, I think is the term. And then there's everything Videoverse makes me think about. The themes of the story make me think about so many things, Disco, and a lot of things that touch our lives, a lot of ideas that we interact with as content creators and gamers and podcasters and streamers. A lot of topics are explored here. Some of them are how tech and entertainment can be so central in forming bonds with strangers. This game made me think about the importance of games. I feel like this game sees games for everything they can give to us, both just the games themselves and also the fandoms they create, the communities they create. It shows us how delicate our online friendships can be. There are friendships in this game that you think are totally solid, and sometimes they can break. Other times people can become friends that you never expected to become friends. So I found that to be powerful. There are lots of words of wisdom injected into this game. I think this game has tons of morals to take away. You might not take away anything new that you've never thought of before, but there are good reminders in this game.
Okay.
And Emmett learns from that. And in the shoes of a 15-year-old boy, you know, this is a character who's learning a lot of these ideas for the first time and then applying them. And then, so I think a lot of the messages of the game are just wonderful. And then this game gives you plenty of chances to be unkind in what you say, but it also gives you so many chances to be kind. And so the game is presenting the player with choice after choice after choice of how do you respond to someone's posts about something. Every time someone posts something online, that is an opportunity for you to say something nice. And that's how I tried to play Emmett in this game. And it made me look for ways to make this place happier as it's degrading because the moderation is going down in this place. I felt like I had this responsibility. Not everybody might play the game that way. People might beeline it more to the DMs that you need to have to progress the story. But it feels like there's always a little bit more you can do. You can take the extra step in trying to improve the communities of Videoverse. So I took every chance I could to do every optional post, every response, reply, and I found that incredibly fulfilling. I also think this game accurately portrays online behavior in ways I've never seen before. Like people will show mannerisms. For instance, Vivi, one of the main characters of the game, they will tend to say, yeah, but they'll spell it out like YEH period. And there's something about that carries a context that saying YEAH exclamation point doesn't carry. And so you start to pick up on patterns of how people type things. You get how people use punctuation and question marks and other forms of typing in their individual ways.
You're kind of opening my mind right now. Like I always, especially in recent years, have like considered myself really good at pattern recognition. But I wonder if that has to do with like spending all my internet time in like MSN Messenger and on like Mega Man forums and just like picking apart people's written text. Maybe that's why my pattern recognition is so like heightened.
I bet you will pick up on things in this game if you play it. Everybody in this game has a brand to how they speak. There are tertiary characters that you don't direct message, but you'll see them in the forums all the time, and they each have a particular way of speaking. And it's all so diverse, and it shows so much character and personality with every single person. I'm just so impressed with the writing of this game. Other online behaviors I noticed, people can leave you hanging. You'll respond to people and they won't respond to you. And that might seem like the game is a little unfinished, but I think that's reflective of how
that's real life.
That's
baby.
real life. There's tons of real life moments in here. And you can leave people hanging in this game too. People will disappear from the forums and sometimes come back, and you'll wonder where they went. And around the time when you're wondering where someone went, someone in the forums in the game might also write a post wondering where someone went. And I got goosebumps a couple times because of that. There's also storytelling not in what is said, but how things are typed. You'll choose something for Emmett to type sometimes, and he'll type them out and then delete them because he has hesitation, and there's storytelling in that too.
Mm-hmm.
This game also makes me feel frustrated at bullies and trolls. I think this game really skillfully recreates that feeling of being bullied or being in an ugly place online. And I was always reevaluating my boundaries for what was reportable, because you can report any post in this place. You know, you can report things because they have spoilers or spam. You can report things because they share personal info or because they have profanity, or maybe someone just isn't being kind or helpful. And you as the player can choose how much you want to report. And there are incentives for reporting people. You might get a theme for your shark console. You might get a different color theme if you report enough people successfully.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, Kinmoku, the game creator, will like they'll DM you a new theme. And so, yeah, I was always thinking about what are my boundaries for how to report people. You can also add likes to every single post in the game if you want. You can choose what to like and what not to like. So there's a lot of customization with each playthrough. I had a few things that I would minorly complain about. One of them is just that sometimes interactions aren't as back and forth in the forums as I'd like. Typically, you can respond to a post, and sometimes people will respond to you, but often you can't respond to that response. And you'll try, but Emmett will say, oh, I don't have anything more to say to this person. But often I would think, oh, I wish you would say more to that person. They don't leave them hanging. So sometimes the conversations can only go so deep. And then Emmett's access to people's profiles and friend requests is pretty limited too. You can only receive friend requests, and you can only do so sometimes when you do the right actions with certain people in this online space. They will befriend you, and then you have this new person you can direct message, which is cool. I just wish I could sometimes dig into people's profiles, do a little bit more studying on the side characters. You can do a little bit of it, but I just wish there was a little bit more depth. Those are pretty minor complaints, though, because Videoverse has many things for many people, in my opinion. It celebrates the magic of games and the gifts they give to us. It reminisces about the early internet while showing us what's timeless about it. It gives you a lot of freedom in how much you do and what exactly you say. And it does all of this with a pretty flawless presentation. So I'm going to give this a 9.5 out of
That's
10.
what I guessed, baby.
And it's playable on PC, which is the version I played, Mac and Linux. This blew me away. I don't think enough people have played it. It's probably in the running for my underrated game of the season. It's so good.
It seems like a pretty easy pick for that, frankly. But wow. Okay, so I don't have a ton of questions. I think I get it, and I think I want to try it out. I guess I'm more interested in like anecdotal stuff. Like what were you doing on the internet in 2003?
Oh, IRL?
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm thinking about how old I was. This was like, I mean, middle school. Not a whole lot. I mean, I remember using Instant Messenger.
Okay.
I remember using Instant Messenger in middle school. And I remember just that's how you would meet people who were in your class that you didn't have a lot of classes with
Okay.
sometimes. I don't know if you ever messed around with instant message systems.
Oh
or
yeah,
anything.
like
You
I
did?
was
Okay.
on MSN Messenger like every day for
Okay.
a couple hours.
Yeah, and I had like a handful of friends that I would just, they're all who I would talk to every night, but I wasn't in huge chat rooms or anything. And then I remember my first social media profile that I can remember was Zanga. Did you have a Zanga?
I did have a Zanga, and I mentioned a Sprite comic earlier in this episode.
Yeah.
And that's where I had
That's
my
where you
Sprite
had
comic initially was
it.
Zanga, and I will never tell you what it was called. So
Okay.
I did try to look it up though when I was writing my notes. I was like, I wonder if I can find my old Sprite comic.
So
'Cause
you won't tell me because you're embarrassed of the name, or you don't want me to
I
try
don't
to
want
find
you to
it.
find it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. I wouldn't try to find it.
Yeah.
Can I know the name though?
I mean, not
I guess
here.
I guess other people would then look for it.
Right.
Never mind.
I couldn't find it though.
Okay.
Between having it posted on Zanga and MySpace
Okay.
and never deleting it, I couldn't find it.
Interesting. Interestingly enough, I skipped MySpace entirely. I never had a MySpace.
I was going to, and even on my Zanga for a while there, I like changed my cover art to be like, MySpace is a place for evil. Stay on Zanga. You know, that kind of
Yeah.
edgelord crap.
This game is kind of a hybrid between like the story, the inciting incident for so many events and conversations is this new system that comes with a new online service / social media platform. So it feels like going from a game console to another game console, like, you know, the Wii U to the Switch. It kind of feels like that idea is going on. But then it also feels like Zanga to MySpace or MySpace to Facebook. It feels like those two ideas are sort of converging here.
Yeah.
And that kind of really ups the stakes because this game console and the games you play on it, it could just be a game console and that's it. But that is a baseline for how you establish relationships with people in this place because you have forums for these games. So people play the games on their Shark, then they bond over them in these forums. And now both of those things are threatened if you don't get the Dolphin, which is the next system. So I was just reminded of all these times when these platforms are sunsetting in my life, and I'm trying to figure out, when do I make the switch? Do I make the switch? In what nature do I make the switch from one platform to the next?
Yeah. I never got on the Miiverse, but I did see some like really cool and creative stuff, and then some really like heartbreaking posts when the Miiverse was shutting down.
And I think Miiverse is a common comparison to the idea of this game too. If listener, if you know of Miiverse, if you used it, I think that's an inspiration here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just anecdotally, I wondered if on purpose they chose the name Dolphin because of the whole like GameCube.
The GameCube, like code name or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. I think Kinmoku is a Nintendo analog here.
Yeah.
Their logo in game even looks like Nintendo's style.
Okay.
So yeah,
it probably.
yeah, probably. So really fun stuff. And then there's just the wordplay with shark and dolphin. There's a lot that's played with there. And then like just when it comes to writing and how communication happens in this game reminded me of when I studied in a few English courses in college, and we would talk about how we write at a certain level where we tend to be a little bit more sophisticated in how we write sometimes, but then we speak at sort of a lower level because it's in the moment. We don't have that time to craft our words. But in social media, where we write on social media is down closer to where we speak. But nonetheless, the sentiments are there. And so even though the posts that are happening in this place are pretty brief and simplified, you get the emotion, you get the feelings, you get the sentiments that people are sharing very efficiently.
Yeah.
It's
Cool.
fascinating stuff. So those are our secret games, Grand Soul Story, and Videoverse. let's move on to our review of Her Story. It is our featured game. Her Story is a 2015 investigation narrative adventure. Some might call it an interactive film. It was developed and published by Sam Barlow. The game synopsis from the Steam storefront reads, quote, "A woman is interviewed 7 times by the police. Search the video database and explore hundreds of authentic clips to discover her story in this groundbreaking and award-winning narrative game."
I'd like to speak to a lawyer now. Please. You have no murder weapon. You have nothing. And all these stories we've been telling each other, just that. Stories.
So, to start off, we will just share that this game is incredibly fragile when it comes to spoilers. So we want to warn you that we will discuss basic plot details that you might not want to hear if you want to experience the game unsullied, but largely we will avoid the big spoilers. We might refer to things vaguely, though.
Yeah.
It's just, this is going to be a tough one to talk about because we don't go into full spoilers, but we will talk about some things. Anything to add to that?
No, I think when I was crafting my notes, I was pretty careful, and I think I got it down. There is a question that I have for you about the story that I still have a confusion on, and I don't really know how to approach that topic. But.
Okay. If there's a way to allude to it, we can try here, or we can just talk about it after the recording. I don't know. But I have confusion too. Early spoiler for something I have to say later. I just, I don't understand everything about this game, and I think that's part of the point of what's going on. And then for story and setting, this game technically takes place sometime in the 2000s from what I could tell. It's after Y2K. They talk about Y2K. It's sometime this century. That's all I remember. But you're someone who has been given access to a computer with a database of video files from 7 different police interviews with a woman from 1994. And you come to know that this woman is named Hannah Smith, who is British. And Hannah was being interviewed by the police because her husband Simon went missing and was later found murdered. And your job is to use this database to search for short clips and piece them together to learn the story. So I'm keeping it super vague, super basic here.
Yeah.
Would you share anything else?
No, not really.
Okay. Then there's how we interact with this computer system. There's the gameplay part, which is kind of unique.
Yeah, so you're using the computer. You are playing as someone using a computer, and you access this database of videos. It's already set to only access these set interviews, but you have the option to type in a word to search for videos. And so, for example, you might type in missing, and the system will show you the first 5 clips in this whole saga that include that word. So basically, each video has its transcript attached to it, and so you can search for words that might appear in that transcript. But from there, you'll watch those 5 clips or less, and then you can opt to maybe add your own tags to a certain video, and you also have the option to add them to your local storage collection so that you can have quicker access to a video that you've already watched that you think might be important or interesting later. And from there, you try a bunch of different keywords to get all the different pieces of the story so that you can discover the truth.
Yeah. Not what I expected this game to sort of resemble in interface-wise, but it's kind of like One-Shot World Machine Edition.
Yeah.
Where you're using a computer screen quite a bit.
Yeah.
And both games happened in the same season of Underplayed, which is crazy.
Oh gosh, was that all this season?
Yes.
Whoa.
One
okay.
Shot was the 4th episode of the season. And then this game is Sam Barlow's first game as an indie developer after he worked at Climax Studios, which is the studio that created games like Serious Sam Next Encounter, Silent Hill Origins and Silent Hill Shattered Memories. So this is actually the first of Sam Barlow's gamography that would utilize an FMV style, with others being Telling Lies and Immortality. Both of those games are on our featured games list. So we're playing the first in this. It's not a trilogy, but these are maybe spiritual successors to Her Story. And this game also won tons of accolades at the Golden Joystick Awards, the Game Awards, GDC, the IGF, the BAFTA Games Awards, and more. Now, DiscoCola, at the end of every season, we pick the lineup of featured games for the next season. And I remember I picked Her Story because I had heard interesting things about it, but didn't know anything about the story. And I was just itching to finally play it like 10 years later. And you said that you were iffy on FMV as a style of game.
Yeah.
And so I would normally just ask you to talk about your overall thoughts next, but I'm curious specifically on this point, after having played Her Story, what are your thoughts on FMV?
I mean, pretty much unchanged.
Oh,
like
okay.
it's still a mostly off-putting style for me. I was having a conversation with our friend Kate about it, and I think I came to the conclusion while I was having that conversation that there is just like a level of interactability that is literally impossible. And that might have something to do with it. Because like at a certain point, everything the FMV can do is predetermined, and it can't change based on a line of code or asking a character model to move a specific way.
Right.
It's all pretty predetermined with very little flexibility. And I don't know if that's all of it, but I kind of came to the conclusion that that at least plays a role. The
heart of the interactivity in this game is choosing what to search in the database, and then using the limited results to inform how you search for other things, maybe. Because I don't know about you, but I was told so many times in this game that my search term yielded dozens of results, but it would only show me the first 5.
Yeah.
And knowing that, that influenced what I searched on successive searches. I tried to search for the very specific things wherever I could. And so I think this game, in a way, is a puzzle game. It's trying to figure out, what do I search to get what I need?
Yeah.
And so it's a word game in a way. It's about perceiving words and spoken language and maybe trying to tie words together. And so now that we've set up the game, what are your fuller thoughts on Her Story?
Yeah, we mentioned it. I was really dreading this game. I was not looking forward to it at all.
Yeah.
The FMV, generally I don't like playing on my PC, and that's non-optional in this case. Secret synergy for the whole episode, all of our games are PC only, no console versions.
Interesting. Yeah.
So like it had a lot going against it. But after a while I did still find myself having some fun.
Yeah. Awesome.
Things that I love, the streamlined gameplay, and it's pretty passive. I've mentioned a few times, specifically this season, that I actually really appreciate some passive gameplay sometimes. And so I got a little bit of that in this game, and that was a nice break, even though it was like the mindset that I'm in when I have to play on my computer is still like strange, and I can't. I just feel weird when I'm doing that, but it made more sense. It was almost like I was catching up on news on YouTube or something.
Oh, okay.
I was kind of able to force myself into that headspace a
lot
little
of
bit.
it is watching,
Yeah.
and not playing. It's hard to call this a game that you like play, because some of the clips are a minute or two long.
And some of them are like 2 seconds.
So yeah, exactly. So you can't always, take your hands away from the mouse and keyboard.
Right. I like that I get to use my listening skills most of the time when I am gaming. I kind of alluded to this, but I am like absorbing news or some other content. Like I'm catching up on No Small Games or something while I'm also gaming. But this kind of forces me to listen, because details can matter, and tone and inflection will have implications,
Mm.
sort of going back to what we talked about in Videoverse, but in vocal
Right.
speech. So I have to listen, and I can be a pretty attentive listener when I have to be. It's just rare for things in my world to really command that great amount of attention. Like
Yeah.
I can usually half focus on three things at once, you know?
Right. You're very good at dividing your attention. And that sounds like maybe it would be a mess, but you do it so well. I can't listen to a podcast and play a game always, but you've always been a very good listener.
Yeah.
So I thought that this game would appeal to that sense about you a little bit.
Yeah, and it was nice to like just have a singular focus for a minute. Like you mentioned, trying to piece this story together, especially from several points in time, is actually kind of fun. It's like a jigsaw puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
It also kind of reminds me of what we very briefly said about Is the Seat Taken in a previous episode. Just kind of trying to chart things out and match vibes. And I just kind of really enjoy that kind of puzzle.
Yeah. And we'll talk in a moment about how we exactly, made notes, pieced it together. Did we use a pen and paper? We'll talk about those strategies too, I'm sure.
Yeah. For the most part, I also like some of the twists. I think the game is also somehow pretty intelligently designed to keep you from accidentally discovering some of these twists too early. There's like it's like they were able to see the future and know some of the choices that you might make. And I kind of got a little bit of the same thing out of Slay the Princess, and that kind of blew me away when that happened to me. So it's really cool how some devs can have that insight to sort of chart what might be a natural progression for a player in a game where you can pick any keyword right away.
Yeah, you can type any word that exists or nonsense, and I don't think any results
Nothing
will
would
come
come
up.
up.
But yeah, there are very simple, everyday words that if you were to search for them, some of them would give you just an atomic bomb of reveals.
Mm-hmm.
And I have an example in my little notepad here. I circled the ones that gave me wild results.
Wow.
And they are everyday words. They're words you might use every day.
Yeah. Lastly, for things I want to praise, there are details that I love picking up on, especially if I find a revelation later that explains some of these details I picked up on before. It makes me feel smart and observant. It's like, oh, this big twist is why these two interviews are like different but the same, you know?
Mhm.
And it's like, now I understand.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel so smart that I like picked up on that the first time I saw those clips. And then I get to the reveal and it's like, oh, I knew there was something
Yeah.
up.
Retroactively, you revisit things when you get a reveal. In hindsight, things make so much more sense.
Yeah. It's like trying to predict the end of the movie, which I know you don't always do or enjoy doing.
Yeah, I've never been able to fully explain this, but I get so caught up in just listening sometimes
Mhm.
that I don't try to also, in a way that's almost multitasking mentally for me, and I just don't always have the capacity to do that.
Yeah, I just can't turn it off. Like, I don't actively always try to predict a movie. It's not like I'm sitting there like, okay, so if this is that and then that is this is the end.
Yeah.
It just kind of like happens.
It's like people who hear a noun and they just automatically see the noun in their minds, and some people don't. Their minds don't work like that. That's
Right.
just how your mind works.
Yeah. I do want to move on to stuff I don't like. Again, generally speaking, I still don't like the FMV game style. I'm open to trying more of them, but this
Okay.
didn't shift the needle for me in a meaningful way. Another thing, I've watched every clip in the game now, and there are still some holes in my timeline that I can't quite fill in. Like, by the end of it, there is a person that has disappeared, but I don't know why. I don't know what happened to them. And I also don't know how I actually trust that they are, in fact, missing.
Mm.
And that's kind of that's kind of what I was referring to earlier with like trying to not get into spoilers. But that's the big question that I still have about this. Like I
Sure.
pretty well figured out everything else, I think.
And I believe some of what you're discussing there is meant to be obscure and vague and just open to interpretation.
I
And
just
so-
don't even have an interpretation for
Yeah.
that is the unfortunate part.
And people who like open to interpretation stories are going to eat here. You know, you're going to have stuff to chew on. And that's not always my favorite thing either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are some things in here that are like vague or like too convenient, maybe,
Mhm.
where I'm like, ooh, I wonder about that. And we don't get the answer. Those ones I'm okay with. But there's just like
Yeah.
this specific one is like, I don't have like an answer.
Mhm.
There's like no good one. There's like 7 different things that could have happened.
Sure. And I like that open-endedness when it's tied into a thematic question or a moral, like this is such a random example, but like the end of Inception. I
Uh-huh.
like the ambiguity at the end of Inception because it's tied to a philosophy you could have about happiness and life. That's something really profound to me. And in investigation mystery stories, I don't always like it as much because I just want to be on a ride and I want to enjoy the ride and then I want to get off the ride. I don't want to like wonder how the ride ended. I don't want to feel like I blacked out for the last
Yeah.
10 seconds of the ride and then I missed the climactic answer.
Yeah, it's
You know?
like at the highest peak of the roller coaster, I sneezed or something,
Yeah.
and then I saw the end. I'm like, what happened back there?
Yes.
I missed it.
And the camera on the ride caught you just as you're doing that
Yeah.
face.
I mentioned the local storage. It allows you to revisit clips, but I think it's an imperfect way to revisit clips. Like early on when I'm playing the game, I'm saving a lot of stuff because I don't really know the full scope of the game yet.
Right.
And then I'm getting like, oh, I shouldn't be saving all this crap. There's tons of stuff. But then when I'm in that phase, I may, brush by a clip that, seems insignificant, but then I get to a revelatory clip later. I'm like, oh, I wish I knew how to get back to that clip
Yeah.
because now that really matters.
Yeah.
And I have to try and rack my brain for like, what was a very specific word used there, and I can't
always revisit.
remember that.
There
so
are
it'll be lost to me.
There are over 200 clips in the game. A lot of clips. A lot of clips. And like you said, some of them are just a couple seconds. It might be the woman just asking for a coffee at the beginning of an interview, and then it cuts. And then other times it's 2 minutes of talking. Sometimes it's playing the guitar and singing a song.
But you just, so that kind of bums me out. And just if you happen to store everything in the local storage that was important, you're still having to scroll through and kind of like look at the thumbnail and be like, is that the one?
Yeah.
No, maybe. And
It
then
all kind of gets jumbled because the preview thumbnail for every clip is the woman
Yeah.
sitting there pretty much. And there are 7 different interviews. So she has different outfits. She has different ways she does her hair.
Yeah. And so that you kind of have to, that's about all you get to rely on for like deciphering one clip from another.
So I was going to get to this a little bit later, but for the stored clips, I abandoned that feature because
I did too,
it was
yeah.
getting overwhelming. I was saving a handful of clips, and even that was hard to juggle. You can rearrange them. I couldn't find a way to delete them from stored clips. It feels like a permanent decision.
I don't remember. I did, like I said,
Okay.
yeah, I also abandoned it. So I just didn't
Yeah.
even bother with it after a while.
Well, I could rearrange them. So I was trying to make a sequential timeline, or I was trying to group them up in the timeline according to the topic. So if they talked about a crime of some kind, I'll just say, I tried to put those together. If it was a clip that was about something that was intriguing, but I didn't understand it yet, I tried to put that next to other clips that were intriguing that I didn't understand yet. So I had these little categories, but it was super unofficial, and it got into this jumbled mess. And I stopped after I added like my 8th clip. I was like, I can't manage this anymore.
I had about 15 in there before I realized I was just overdoing it, overusing it, and then I was like, well, whatever. I'll just rely on the keyword system.
And it's always staring you in the face. That timeline of saved clips is always underneath the search results, so it feels like the game wants you to use it, and I just didn't feel compelled to.
Yeah, same. And then just a minor complaint here. In the performance, emphasis on certain words or certain lines would have just a bit of an odd delivery, or maybe have like body language that felt strange or maybe less authentic. Like I said, super minor complaint, but it does stand out when pretty much the rest of the performance is quite solid. But there were at times where that was the case. And sometimes the game structure itself justifies why certain words would be emphasized in a way that sounds weird, because it does draw your attention to it. But it does take away from that performance aspect of it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's like an unnatural way of speaking. And it's like you see the seams of it. It's like, I know why you're doing that. You're catering to someone who might have found this clip a little bit earlier than I did to help guide them along. It's not completely holding people's hands, but it's becoming approachable enough that the game will work for this game has to work for everybody who tries the different combinations of words.
Yeah.
And so at a certain point, they have to deliver the lines in a way that give you those bonus clues if you're extra perceptive.
Like I'll deliver a fake example that doesn't appear in the game. Maybe she'll be telling a story about a lumberjack, or like we were talking about a lumberjack, but then she'll say a lumberjack. But she'll like put an unnatural emphasis on
the
it.
way you just did that with your eyes and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so accurate.
And that happened in the game. I was like, well, I mean, as a performance, that's odd, but it serves a purpose for gameplay.
And a lot of those moments will happen right at the end of a clip.
Yeah.
Because they want to end on a memorable note to give you an idea of what to search next sometimes. But it's very intentionally chopped in that way too. Not just like the way those words are delivered, but that word, that emphasis is going to be in the very last sentence for dramatic effects.
Right. So at the end of it, this is something I was dreading. The FMV kind of game is still pretty off-putting to me. However, after starting the game and playing it for maybe like 45 minutes, I did find myself enjoying the hunt for the story. I also took notes IRL. I brought my notebook here too. And I was taking notes on names of people, places, certain unusual words. And that was fun. Yeah. For me, it was a great exercise in careful listening. And then when you work in audio every day, you sort of like learn these nuances of inflection and tone and how they carry intent or just vibes overall. So I get to use my daily skill set to get a little bit more out of this game than other people might.
Cool.
Again, the FMV style is still not appealing to me regardless. And eventually, once I got the main bullet points of the story, I did become less interested in the finer details and timeline, and I just became more interested in collecting all the clips. So for me, and all those reasons, Her Story is a 7.5 out of 10.
All right. I honestly didn't expect you to like the game necessarily. I thought there was a chance. So I'm glad that you had an overall good time.
I did still have, it took a minute, but I did eventually start to have some fun and like starting to take notes, and like they got me to pull out a pen and paper that was just laying there. So it was effective.
I bet there haven't been like too many games in Underplayed history that have made you pull out the pen and paper.
Nope, not a ton.
Amazing. I love that just by itself because I did the same thing. And coincidentally, this year I've played lots of games that have required me to use just this little notebook here. Like this is all from this year. These notes are from Crow Country.
Okay.
These are from Myst. That's still from Myst. And then we've got Her Story notes. And then just recently I have notes for Is This Game Trying to Kill Me?
Oh, yeah.
And then notes for We Were Here Together. Lots of puzzle games.
I had some notes for Inscription and Papers, Please. So both from this season.
Nice. Wow.
But I don't think there are a ton of examples from previous seasons.
Wow. Cool little synergy this season. But yeah, for my thoughts, I align with you on so many things. I think a lot of this is just going to be repeating what you said, but just like I was saying WTF a lot in this game. I really liked Viva Seifert's performance. I think it's so crucially central to making this an intriguing, baffling, shocking carnival ride of drama. She has to balance so many emotions and moments with precision, and I thought she did so masterfully. There are those times where she has to be a little bit more melodramatic, like you mentioned, and I guess that didn't pull me out as much. I appreciated it as someone who might not always be the best listener. So I found that I was hanging on every word that she was saying. I was like, what are you going to say something that I've heard before? And if I hear it again, I might know, okay, this is really important. I've got to just write that down and know that that's maybe more important than I thought it was at first. But she would mention names and mention places that I hadn't heard yet. And I would always perk my ears up because of how she was telling this story. There were moments that got under my skin. There's part of this game where when you find an important piece of footage, you will see your reflection on the computer screen momentarily. And that scared me so much the first time. And every time after, it was creepy. There are music cues that go along with these times too.
Yeah.
And I got goosebumps from those.
I remember my first music drop. I'm like, oh, I found something cool.
Yeah, it's this nice way of the game telling you, hey, you're making progress. And that was reassuring because it feels so open-ended sometimes. It feels like you've got this database of hundreds of clips. Am I doing this right? And so those music cues are telling me, yes, you're learning. And that's also what this game is about. It's a puzzle game with words. That's one way you could think about it. It's also just about listening and learning. And sometimes searching for those keywords is this series of domino effects. And that's a thrill when you really get going. I had a sequence of, I found someone's name, and that led me to searching for a place. And then that led me to searching for a noun. And I felt momentum a couple times in the game. And so that is really powerful when you notice those sequences. Every player will potentially discover things differently, though, and that's exciting to me too. This is something I love in games. I love when two different people can play a game and have a different journey of discovery. That is definitely possible in her story. But, I think you can stumble across some pretty enormous revelations without trying too hard. I do largely agree with you that I think they were really thoughtful in building out this story in a way where you can't get everything spoiled near the start. But I think it is possible to get some big things spoiled, or not spoiled, but just maybe learned a little bit too soon. And I feel like there was one thing that I learned way too soon.
I agree with you, and it is related to like the last interview. And I had this like probably in the first third of the game, maybe even first quarter. Like there's one big reveal there that I had pretty early.
It might be the same one I'm thinking of right now. Yeah. To me, it's like the big one.
Yeah.
I mean, there are several big ones, but it's like the one I always think back to.
But I guess when I got to it, for me, it was just like a jarring thing to hear. And it's like, did I hear that? Am I misunderstanding something?
Yeah. When I heard it at first, I have all of the basic early story things to compare it to. And so I start hearing it. I'm like, wait, what? Slow down. Wait, what? So it was super jarring. And that's one of the early clips that I favorited, right? Because I'm like, what does that mean? So that was one of my 8 clips that I did save. And so that was central to how I understood information going from that point. So yeah, I still didn't know what was going on. So that is to the game's credit. It's just, I think sometimes you can stumble across enormous revelations, and I feel a little guilty about that. Maybe I wasn't embracing the spirit of the game in the way that they wanted, but I guess I'll also take it. I'll take it. It made for an interesting, shocking moment. And I love the shocking moments in this game. But yeah, there are just twists and turns and developments that are so memorable. There's so many memorable moments from this game. And
I think I still have. It's been like 3 weeks since I finished this game now, and I still have the storyline pretty well laid out in my head.
Yeah.
It's pretty memorable.
And I've thought back to it. I've thought about, because she's being interviewed 7 different times, she has to talk about many parts of her life.
Mhm.
And I think about all these phases.
Yeah.
I imagine what it looked like to make each of these things work in her life. And it's stranger than fiction, but it is fiction. You know, it's like one of those stories that you'd see a docuseries about on Netflix or something.
Totally.
And like, holy crap, this is real. But it's fiction. So they managed to make a crazy enough story that it seems like it should be real, but it's actually fiction, if that makes sense. And then I get to some things that I don't like. I don't necessarily know when I should be done looking up terms in this game. And I think that's maybe the point, but I had a pretty uneven experience where the first 2.5 hours I was constantly learning, and I got to the quote unquote end of the game and I still had video files that I hadn't seen yet. And I spent another 2.5 hours just searching term after term after term. And I'm just trying to do the completion of the game, which I feel like is the only task I have left for me. I didn't get credits or anything yet. And so what am I left to do but to just keep this game open and search for things? And I had a tough time because you get scraps. I mean, you get little pieces here and there.
You do get to a point.
And when I'm using the database checker, which is the feature that lets you see how many clips you have left, I would see strings of empty clips, meaning like, and they're sequential. They're in chronological order. So I see a line of 12 clips that are blank, and I go,
there's something, I'm missing something.
There's like a whole interview I'm missing.
Yeah.
I eventually had to look up how to find some of these clips because I couldn't do it all myself. I
Yeah.
couldn't find all 200 plus. And all those were unexciting and unfulfilling.
Most of them were, I think I missed the same chunk, and it was like,
so I was led by this carrot on a string, and it didn't lead to a place that I thought it was. So that's why I say it's uneven.
Yeah.
Because so much of this game I can do by myself, but the game is making me think that there is a gold mine of stuff that I still haven't seen. And it's really not that great.
Yeah. So when I got the option to end the game, which I had to Google, by the way, it was like, when is this game over? Like, I don't understand. I did have to Google that.
Yeah.
But once I like had the option to end it, I was like, I still have a couple more questions. I'll do a little bit more searching. And then I got to a point where I was like, I know that this person did this thing. Like, and that's, I guess, the point of the interview.
Yeah.
But also, like, I know I'm missing a lot too. So it's like, I'll just end the game and then I'll come back.
Okay. That kind of sounds like parts of what I did too. And also just the way the story is told, it can be disorienting in a way that I feel a bit overwhelmed. That's more of a me problem. Some people are just going to take this in better. I think it's supposed to disorient you though. And the game is fully embracing that. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I also didn't use the stored clips in the user tags. I thought those were just strange features that didn't seem appealing. I didn't see the appeal of them, so I didn't use them. They just don't fit my play style. But overall, her story was a shocking, wild ride. The excitement did fizzle out a bit by the end of my playtime, but this was unlike any other investigation experience I've had. So I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10.
All right.
I enjoyed it quite a lot.
Cool.
Great time with her story. I had a fun time streaming this. Streaming it also might have divided my attention a bit. That can happen.
Sometimes with a game like that, though, there's a lot of potential to get more out of it when you stream something like that.
People were reacting to moments the same way I was. That was reassuring. That was validating.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And then some people would say like, ooh, I have an idea for something to search, but I don't want to tell you. And so that made me a little self-conscious. I want to talk about this performance by Viva Seifert and any touches we noticed. Again, avoiding spoilers, but did you pick up on any other performance touches?
There's just certain details that convey different mindsets. And so you'll pick up on those details eventually. Most of them for me were visual, but eventually I would start to like understand what mindset our character is in, just based on certain visuals, certain ways that they speak, but not as much in that arena. But that's also kind of like maybe the strength of the performance is that despite these different mindsets, it's a pretty consistent performance throughout.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it's striking a balance.
Yeah.
It's giving you clues, but it's also making you question whether you should read into that clue
Yeah.
as much as you think the game wants you to. And so you start playing a mind game with yourself.
Can I say we're doing a really great job of avoiding spoilers right now?
Oh,
like,
good.
We're doing awesome.
Yeah,
Because I think we're conveying the point still.
I'm understanding what you're saying 100%. And I
And
think if you've
same
played
with
the
you.
I think
Yeah.
if people have played the game, they'll understand too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a great way to put that. Yeah, and I love how little touches will seem insignificant, and then in retrospect, like you said, you'll go back and you'll think, oh, that's why I've been hearing about this so many times. Like, for instance, she'll talk about how she takes her coffee. That's a little clue that will lead to something, and it will do that time and time again. And I love stuff like that,
Yeah.
you know, because there are those filler clips. There are those clips where it doesn't give you anything. Not everything's supposed to give you an answer or a path forward. And so at first I thought the coffee was doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. A
Really
lot
cool
of
stuff.
there are, I would say at least half of them are probably like filler, or at least don't have anything revelatory. But there are a lot more that you think are nothing burgers that will have just
Yeah.
something hidden in them.
Yeah. And I found that there was a piece of the story sometimes told twice in different clips. And I think they're just putting an extra breadcrumb next to a different tree in the forest, because I might be next to this tree over here. You might be next to that tree over there.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll each find a breadcrumb that will then lead us here in the middle. You know?
Yeah.
So that was appreciated too. Love that. There might be clues that women might tend to pick up on more often than men. I just get that sense that maybe there's a deeper level of the performance that's doing this sometimes. I don't know if you agree, or it's hard to agree.
Yeah, it's hard to agree on something that
We
is
have no experience
potentially
with,
you'd
right.
not pick up on. So
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't have an opinion for you on this one.
Okay. I kind of got this sense from some of the people in my chat. I
Okay.
guess.
And see, that's another way that playing this game, a game like this on Twitch, can be
Yeah.
reward the experience a little bit
Yeah.
more, enhance the experience a little bit more.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I want to talk to more people about the game. It's one of those games where you want to talk to people about it right after you play too. Yeah.
You mentioned this already, but while being vague, are there certain keywords or strategies that you found useful?
Well, this is where I just want to show you my notebook here. So what I first started doing, which I think is pretty intuitive.
Here's our ASMR.
Yeah.
That was really good, actually.
Yeah. It's really nice. The first thing I started doing was just writing down general facts.
Mm-hmm.
So I started writing about characters like Eric and Diane.
Yep. I've got like Rockington Arms
Yep.
and who the owners are.
Mhm.
I also eventually started writing down the bosses and his wife.
Uh-huh. And then eventually, there were 271 clips.
Okay.
I wrote that down as a note.
Good Lord.
I know.
It doesn't seem quite like that many,
I
but
know.
it did seem like a lot.
Then I'm writing down questions that I'm speaking out loud. And I was like, I should just write that down. So I have question marks in my notes. Then my next phase of note taking was making a page for every name.
Yeah.
And then writing all facts related to that person.
I think maybe that's more where I started because I had that for some people. Ooh, I see a little. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to that clip, but then I think I did find it. I was like, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah.
But
I thought I would need to use it later for something.
that's kind of what I did with like Inscription. Anyways, we're
Yeah.
being vague here. You guys
are
can't
being
even
vague.
see what we're
We're
talking about.
talking about a part of the game that uses numbers and a rhythm.
Yeah.
That uses numbers. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
And then the last phase of my note taking was writing down words and then crossing them out when I
As you-
searched them.
Yep. This is my page for that.
Yep.
Yep.
I have all these on this page. I have all these on this page. And then I have all of these on these 2 pages.
Oh, yeah. You got a
I
lot.
have, it basically looks like the ramblings of someone losing their mind.
So in mine, I want to show you, I was referring to this big revelation.
Yeah.
So my first page, I kept devoted to Simon. I didn't write anything else on there. It's just facts about Simon. So my second page is just like, I'm still starting to take notes about like bosses or locations pretty early in the game. So right here at the top of my third page is when I find out about this big revelation.
Yeah. The very top line.
So I did find it pretty early, according
Yeah.
to where it is in my notes.
Yeah. I'll show you the word that led me to a big atom bomb revelation or just moment. This word that's circled.
Interesting. Yeah, very mundane word.
Right?
Yeah,
Right? Like that's a word that you'd use any day.
yeah.
And it was far from the first thing I searched, but pretty early on.
Mhm.
And it gave me that thing. So
It is a word that you could potentially think to search if you're just typing out crime investigation words.
yeah.
Because
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And then there were words that I didn't search for far too long. And I want to point, this is so big. I want to point to 2 terms that I did search eventually, but I should have searched for them
Like,
way
way sooner.
sooner. This word.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a similar word that I waited a really long time to search for.
Okay. And then this word. I didn't search for that for way too long.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was in the dark a little bit about something, but then
that
made sense.
second term, I don't know if I searched that one specifically, but I searched a lot of words related to it.
I did too. But the genius of this game too is that it's not like a clip from the testimony will use all of the related
Right.
words to a term in one interview segment. So you have to be thorough
You do,
sometimes. And I
yeah.
appreciate that. Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise, like, I got maybe a third of the way through the game, and then eventually it was just like, I'm typing any word I maybe just heard and haven't typed before,
Yeah.
essentially.
When I got to the end phase and I'm just trying to find all the clips, I'm trying to get completion by myself. I was searching for words like where, that, the,
Yep.
I was just, it was
Just
desperate.
anything,
It was
yeah.
desperate. So I wouldn't
And
have
I
gotten them all
eventually
on my own.
used a guide.
Same.
Yep.
Same. I didn't use user tags at all, really.
I started to, but ultimately found it pretty useless
Yeah.
and was like essentially tagging things that actually might muddle up later search results anyway. So
Yeah. And I just thought, if I'm going to do this, it's going to be an all or nothing thing. And if it's going to be an all thing, it's going to be tedious.
And you don't even know, like I mentioned earlier, like you don't even know what's significant when you're starting the game.
You don't.
Too. Some things are
You don't.
they matter more than you think. So
Yep.
and then it's too late.
Yeah. Okay. And then similar to this topic, moments that were profound or shocking, maybe using broad allusions to reference things. Not sure if we'll keep this in the episode because it might be hard to do this, but there's a person with a name that starts with F. I'll just say that. They are involved early on in the story.
Right. Okay.
That was wild. That was like where the game started to be wild for me when I learned what happened with them. And then there's a noun. Now I don't know if you remember this specific moment, but there's a moment with this noun that made me like throw my notebook because it was so just out of left field
Yeah.
for me.
It was for me, it was less about the object and more about who was cooperating in that moment.
Yeah, no, the idea of it, what was happening with plural characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the part I was like, oh, I don't know about that. But
Yeah.
There's a lot of moments that are profound or shocking. For me, I'm more focused on ones that I'm like, this is what is said to have happened, but maybe given the circumstances, and I'm thinking of, if this is too spoilery, I'm thinking of something that happened with Hannah's parents. And it's like, we have what is told to us and what the official facts are. But given the circumstances, there could be a lot more going on there.
Yes.
And I'm like, if you take that and add it to the big question, the big hole I have in my story, it paints one particular character in a different kind of light.
Like, is that done for more than one reason?
Yeah.
And that thing could be its own game. That could be its own story,
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of a footnote in this game.
Yeah.
I think I know what you're talking about. Do you think I know what you're talking about?
Here's an edit point for you, Bo. I think it is possible that and then also
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about the
uh-huh.
of what you were talking about, of the parents.
But like
or are they or
I'm glad you also had that potential thought.
Or is she crazy? Anyway.
But yeah, I don't know. There were a lot of shocking moments. I think one of the most memorable clips to me is, I'll just say, a clip regarding a birthday. And just the way that story, that part of the story was told, was really profound to me.
Good.
Yeah.
That was so good. There are thematic ideas with mirrors and windows in this game that I think are very thought-provoking. And there's even a game that you can play on the computer.
I didn't play this.
Did you open it?
I looked at it.
Okay. But what that's doing is clever too. I just really appreciate all the touches, and you can see things for what they are on the surface. But then if you think about thematically what they might be referring to, there's depth there too. It's cool. It's really cool. It's very thoughtfully put together. I don't know if I can allude to anything else without spoiling it. So, but yeah, I agree with you there on that point.
And then we kind of alluded to this, but like ending the game and when did we decide that we were done? It sounds like we both went for completion. That's not where I quote ended my game at first. Like I did roll credits because I felt like I put myself in the mind of an investigator, and in that mindset I was like, I have what I need to create a timeline and to bring charges or convict or do none of that. And so I feel comfortable rolling credits now.
At a certain point you get a prompt to end the game.
Which I didn't understand that's what that was at first.
Neither did I. And so I didn't even get to the point where I felt comfortable doing that because I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know that I had to do it a certain way.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I didn't do the necessary basic experimentation to do it properly. So I had to look up how to do that. And I actually thought for a second, oh, this game doesn't end. It's just kind of this computer that I can choose to shut off. That's the story. And it could kind of be like that, but there's just more I didn't know how to do.
Yeah. Eventually I went back because I was like, I still have questions. And I found the database checker pretty late. And so I chose to end the game, and I was like, okay, I'm going to come back. I'm going to keep the database checker open and go through. And like you said, you had that big chunk of 12 interviews at the bottom that you were like, oh, there's something there.
Yeah.
And so I went through for like maybe an hour trying to get as much as I could on my own. And then I was like, it's guide time, baby. I'm done.
I found a guide that just said what keywords to search to get every sequential clip.
Yep.
And so I had,
And I did that. And I must have missed one or two because there were like 3 clips I still hadn't seen at the end. And so I used a different method to get those last 3 clips.
Okay. Yeah. And I had pockets of 3 and 4 clips here and there too.
Yeah.
So I had such high hopes for the quote unquote post game.
Yeah, the
of like
cleanup.
what bonus info will I find? And there just wasn't as much there as I expected. But I'm really glad we played this. It's very unlike other games we've played and reviewed for this show, I feel. It's certainly unlike other games I've played.
Yeah, I was impressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an impressive feat, I think, of storytelling. And I hope to play more games by Sam Barlow in the future. We have 2 more on our featured games lists. And I've heard very good things in particular about immortality.
Okay, that's the one I don't have.
Okay. So we'll see if we get to that relatively soon. But that is our review of Her Story. You can play it on PC, Mac, Android, and iOS. DiscoCola rated it a 7.5. I rated it an 8. That's the end of this episode of Underplayed. You can find more of our episodes at kzum.org/underplayed and on common podcast platforms like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Our music was composed by Jack Rodenberg. Our art comes from Onimochi. Check out our show notes where you can find and follow us across social media. Underplayed is on Bluesky, Instagram, and Threads. You can also find my links down below, and I stream a variety of indie games on Twitch.
And I am at DiscoCola in all of my social media platforms, and I stream when I can, which has actually happened a bit more often lately. But summer's coming, and so it should be at least once a week.
Nice. Next time, we'll have 2 more secret games to review, a developer interview with Jeremy Reineck of Moonsoul Games, and our featured game will be Animal Well, a Metroidvania developed by Billy Basso. Until then, everyone, keep on playing.